Justin Fields is the next Mike here.
Mm-hmm.
And according to, so they're looking to trade him, according to pretty much everyone who's plugged in, because they're probably going to take Caleb Williams with the number 1 pick. And according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, the Bears will need multiple teams in the fray to drive an actual market for Fields. But after asking around, I expect Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Las Vegas, and he throws the Vikings on this list too, to be on the radar for a Justin Fields trade. I don't know if they're going to get a second-round pick for Fields, but where would you guys like to... do you think he is a viable starting quarterback, a guy that you might pay as a franchise quarterback in a couple years? And where would be the most fun landing spot to rejuvenate Justin Fields' career? Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Las Vegas, Minnesota, and anywhere else that wasn't listed here.
I mean, first of all, I'm still kind of a big believer in keeping Justin Fields in Chicago, trading the number 1 pick, and building your roster much like Atlanta did, and then being able to go and then buy a free agent quarterback in a couple of years if you need to. Like, I still think that's a very viable option for Chicago. Like, I don't think that's
so, use your 2 top 10 picks on...
trade the number 1 overall, get another first this year, get another first next year, and a couple seconds, couple thirds. Like, that's a highly coveted. You could load up with picks, right? Load up with
especially
picks.
For what you talked about, Jay, the 2025, 2026
Yeah,
draft.
25. So, yeah, that's a whole nother
crazy.
can of worms.
When you said that, I was
so
like...
one thing, projecting down the road, little sidebar here, projecting down the road as an agent, in 2026, there's going to be a meteor and an asteroid that are colliding on an absolute collision course in college football, which is no more sixth-year COVID players, right? So all the sixth-year COVID players will be in that draft, plus all the players that don't have a COVID year and are on their 5th year. So there's going to be this massive class of players coming out that are going to be a ton of guys that have mid-round grades that are going to be 7th to PFAs, because there's going to be massive numbers. There's no more draft slots. There's only 250-ish draftable slots, right? And so if I'm a team and I'm projecting down the road, I want to load up with picks in the 26 draft. Load up with picks, right? And even in the 25 draft, because some of these players might be like, shoot, I don't want to be in the 26. I'm going to come out in 25. Right, so accumulating picks for the future with looking down the road of what the landscape of college football and the players that are going to be coming out is going to be very interesting in this draft of what guys do, because there's going to be a ton of talent in those 2 drafts. So if you look at it from that perspective, hey, Justin Fields last year, we finally got him a true number 1 wide receiver in DJ Moore. Cole Kmet finally started emerging as a true Pro Bowl type tight end. Maybe we go get him a more premier back. Right, they were running through running backs like crazy last year trying to find one.
Yep.
And let's build around Justin Fields and accumulate draft capital. I still think that's a very real possibility in Chicago if they don't decide to do that. Now, put it on the flip side, Justin Fields goes somewhere. I think he's a viable starting quarterback in this league. I think his first 2 years in the league, he had no weapons. He had no help. It was just the Justin Fields show, and obviously that didn't work so well. But I saw some flashes, especially towards the back end of last year, that this dude is a legit number 1 quarterback in this league. I think a lot of those places would be really lucky to have him. Pittsburgh probably being my number 1.
I was just going to say that, dude. I'd love to see him in Pittsburgh. But I agree with you. Towards the end of the last year when he was kind of like, okay, I can show everybody what I can do. That's why when I'm looking at this, I kind of agree with Jay. I don't see them not trading out of the first pick and then just loading up in the rest of the draft and going, we're about to just protect the living hell out of this guy. We're about to find him a ton of options. We're going to give him a great running back. I mean, dude, he's a good player. Get him with some good coaches, he could be a great player. Like, he can move really well. He is also another big quarterback that can throw the ball, move around, run with it. These guys, I'm telling you, once they get ingrained in these systems, you just have to keep teaching them. I'd love to see him with the Steelers, but I'd also love to see him with Antonio Pierce out the Raiders, because I feel like Antonio Pierce is one of those guys that just gives you confidence, right? Like, dude, watching him around the combine, and I know that somebody had, like, I saw a meme of an old GM that was like, oh, I'm so sick of this Antonio Pierce. I was like, dude, I love him. Every time he sees himself on the camera, he like waves. Every time you see him around, he's always like super nice and stuff. You're like, dude, that's the kind of guy you want to play for. But then you see him in the locker room and he's like, yo, we're going to kick some teeth in, smoke some stogies at the end. Like, I love everything about that. That's what I feel like Justin Fields needs. Someone that's like, dude, this is all bullshit. We're on a new team. You're here with me now. Let's just go out here and kick some people in the face. Like, and that's what he needs.
Similar to Kirk Cousins. He made you a fresh start, right? Like, Like, look at Baker down in Tampa this year.
Dude.
He, like, bounced around, jumped around, and finally got himself in a really good position with really good receivers and took the team to the playoffs.
And they kept Mike Evans.
Like, I can definitely see Justin Fields being that guy when you put him with, let's say, Pittsburgh, right? You got George Pickens, right? You've got that young tight end, Freiermuth, right?
Yep.
Who really started emerging last year. Like, you got Warren in the backfield. You got Najee Harris. Like, that's more weapons than Justin Fields ever had. Ever in his entire career in the NFL. Besides this year, he had DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. Like, that was it, right? That was it. They traded Chase Claypool because he was terrible. Like, all these things. So I think that Justin may want a fresh start, but I think that if you build a good team around him in Chicago, he's a very viable quarterback to win you a lot of games.
He's also there. There's so many examples, and I get why, because you want to find out in the first year or two to take advantage of a rookie scale contract, right? Can this guy play? So quarterbacks get thrown into the fire right away. And then if they're not great after 2 years or 3 years, they're just, okay, on to the next. And the Bears have gone through this a number of times over the years too, right? But there are guys that Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith is a more extreme example where if you can just be a little more patient or come back to a guy when he's a few more years into the NFL, just because he's not great after 2 years, it doesn't mean he's a bust for the rest of his career, right? So how do you balance that? If you're the Bears too, you're not ready to pay Justin Fields $30, $35, $40, $45 million a year. So there is value in starting the clock over with a Caleb Williams. I would say this. If they think Caleb Williams is better day one than Justin Fields,
you take him.
Just
Yeah,
take
you have to.
Caleb Williams,
Right.
and go get like a third or fourth round pick for Justin Fields. But I also feel like we write quarterbacks off so early in this league right now, and Justin Fields deserves 2 or 3 more years with whether it's a new offensive infrastructure. Like, I think about
Also,
some of the, like Kevin O'Connell with Justin Fields. You'd see a better version of Justin Fields.
I think so too. And he had what, 2 offensive coordinators, couple different offensive coordinators. Like, he's had no consistency in his career.
Right.
Zero consistency. And that's so hard for a young player to develop under a zero consistent basis if you're not going back into the same system as your second year as it was your first year. So now you're learning everything over again and different moving parts. Like, just getting him some consistency for his development, his growth, and we could see the strengths of it last year, that would be big too. And I know you're moving teams, so you're kind of starting over again. But when it's clean slate, it's different than just trying to be in the same organization and doing something different. So a clean slate for him would be really good.